Hello, fellow patriots, and welcome back to a brand new edition of Red Rights and You. This is a special edition. It's one that at least I've been waiting for. I've got a guest, folks. It's not just me today. I'm sure that's really going to disappoint a lot of people, but I've got a very special guest today. His name is Mark Mosgrove. He is an entrepreneur, specialized in journalism in school. He's up on political events, and we're just going to discuss the political climate a little bit and give everybody kind of a fresh perspective. I think you all know by now, those of you who subscribe or watch quite often, what my viewpoints are. So we're going to get some fresh thoughts and kind of just go over the first, we would normally say 100 days, right? But he's moving at such breakneck speed that we might as well say it's like 100 hours. It's been more like a few weeks, but I mean, he is flying. 300 executive orders. He's doing this. He just hit a suspected terrorist in Somalia. And so things are moving at, yeah. There was a strike in Somalia. I don't know if he got the leader or not, but we'll hear all about that. Of course, he got him, but, sometimes he jumps the gun a little bit. But just wanted to talk to you a little bit, Mark, about how you feel, kind of what the political climate is in your situation, how you feel about Trump, the election, things like that, and then we'll go from there. So give me a little bit of your perspective on Trump and how you think he's doing. How did you feel about the first term, and how do you think things are going so far this term?
Okay, well, let me give you like a really quick recap of my relationship with Donald Trump. My first time I met Donald Trump is I got the Art of the Deal book when I was, I think, in college. Read that book a couple times. Thought he was pretty smart. Of course, because it's his book and, everything he did was smart, obviously, right?
Right.
Even though he had a ghostwriter. And then we had a little bit of a problem in our relationship where being from Ohio, he tried to buy the Cleveland Indians. I don't know if you remember this, Tim.
I don't. Yeah.
Tried to buy the Cleveland Indians, and he was going to move them to Tampa. He wrote a letter to the owners of the Indians at the time and said, I want to buy the team for X amount. They didn't do it. Then the second thing he did that really hurt my relationship is Brian Sipe was the quarterback of the Browns, and Donald Trump had the New Jersey Generals USFL football team, and he signed away Brian Sipe from the Browns.
Now
who was my favorite player.
Now that I remember.
And I'm like, this guy, when he sees Ohio on the map, Ohio just as well could be Lithuania, So I didn't have a very good opinion.
Right.
Then, because I'm like, he's just all about this and that and all that. And then as time went on and, he'd be interviewed, that sort of thing. Then he had The Apprentice show, which I watched a little bit, but I already knew who he was. I watched it a little bit. And then I remember maybe about 15 years ago seeing him in an interview, and he was talking about China and trade even then. And I'm like, what? Somebody like him might be a good change to be a president someday. And I even remember, I'm not going to say who, but a senior family member saying, next president, this is like in the early 2000s, something like that.
Right.
Maybe it ought to be somebody like a Trump. And this family member is like, Trump, are you crazy? Now that family member is like the most ardent Trump supporter there is. I mean, Trump can do no wrong. So it's just funny how that comes about. Then when he ran for president, and the very first was at Cleveland for the 2016, the very first debate, there were like 12 people there. I was anybody but Trump. Just was, because I'm like, I don't think he's serious. You know what I'm saying? And then as they got eliminated and ended up being him, I still was like, well, he's a lot better than Hillary Clinton. And like my neighbor at the time used to say, if I had to vote either Hillary Clinton or Lucifer himself, he would vote for Lucifer. That's how strong people were about Hillary Clinton. So when Trump came in, I was pleased, but he got a bad shake because they did not consider him legitimate right off the bat. And then, they had all the Russian stuff and this and that and everything like that. I thought he got a raw deal on that stuff. Couldn't really get his agenda going as much as he could have if he had Basically, what he's doing now was probably what he wanted to do in 2016, but he couldn't get the traction going to do anything. He's more emboldened.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when he lost, I could see why. And you got to remember the COVID and all COVID stuff and everything like this, crazy times. I could see why he lost. And I was pretty upset with him that he just didn't. I lost. I'm going to come back in 4 years. I didn't like a lot of that stuff. So I never thought in a million years that he would run again. But then for 4 years, seeing Biden, you're like, boy, Trump was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
After all. But I still had a hard time with some of that. Geez, the Mike Pence stuff, everything like that. I'm like, ugh. But then when they brought out, I never would have voted for Biden again. So I probably, if it would have been Trump versus Biden, like maybe a year or so ago, I probably would have voted a third party person because I was like, I don't want either of them.
Right.
Then as time went on and you heard Kamala Harris, I'm like, she's dangerous and I cannot see her be president. So then I started feeling more favorable towards Trump. And then he did a few things that was kind of endearing, the McDonald's thing and the garbage truck thing and everything like that. And I'm like, he started to win me over, but then he would, he'd listen to his speeches and then he'd get into his old gripes. And I'm like, oh, please stop, please stop, please stop. You're not helping yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he still does it. He's won. I mean, he still does it. So anyway, so I've had a complicated relationship with Trump, but it's amazing what he's done in the last, you said 100 hours. Really, it was like 100 minutes practically, because I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom,
yeah.
boom, boom. I mean, it was all kinds of things. And he was basically doing what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
And I agree with probably 80% of it. The Panama thing is not quite sure what's going on there, but I do know the Chinese do have those ports. And if they wanted to, I just saw yesterday, they're building bridges over the Panama Canal that if they wanted to shut down the Panama Canal, a couple explosions or one rocket, they could drop a bridge right in the Panama Canal and totally shut off trade. So he's right about the Panama thing. How we go about that, I don't know.
Well, I've got kind of a unique perspective on the Panama Canal and Panama. I actually know somebody who is Panamanian and grew up in Panama. And he said it seems like whoever's running it kind of takes that culture, and that's basically what surrounds it. He said the economy and everything down there was never better than when the Americans were running the Panama Canal. Everything was Americanized. They had American restaurants, all the neighbors. It was safe. It was clean. And his family actually moved out of Panama and back into the United States after Panama took back over. And so now it's kind of the same thing with the China. If you look, there's a gazillion Chinese, right around the Panama Canal, and it's become kind of a Chinese territory, much like it was a U.S. territory back then. So it's taken on their personality, their customs, their methodology, things like that. It's kind of different, but yeah, I think there's something we need to do.
100,000 Chinese live there. I saw yesterday.
Right, and it was like that with
having festivals and everything like that. I mean, so there is definitely a Chinese presence there for sure.
Just like it was little America back then, it's little China now. So we put all that blood, sweat, and tears in there and lost all those people building it. I do think it's proper to get back in there now. Now that China's got their heels dug in, though, that's what's going to be interesting. They're the biggest concern as far as starting a war or something like that. But he's pretty good, and he may use the tariffs with that as well. But it's going to be kind of tricky sometimes. I'm also very curious to see. He's always used tariffs as a bargaining chip and leverage. Mexico and Canada, I don't see them going too long before caving because we have such an overwhelming advantage with commerce. But China is a different animal, right? You're not going to be able to bully them and push them around. So I'm a little bit curious to see how he is going to react when somebody really digs their heels in, somebody that has some leverage too, and see how that works. Part of it, I think, is going to be patience. It may hurt the economy short term, but I think what he's counting on is look, how long can a country like that go without having a trade relationship with the United States?
Right.
They're going to have to cave. But
Well,
it makes me curious with China.
well, one last thing about the Panama Canal before I forget is I think part of China's strategy with the Panama Canal, and I'm sure someone has mentioned this, but I haven't thought of this. China wants Taiwan back bad.
Right.
And if anybody's read into that history, I mean, basically just go on Wiki. The Chinese government went to Taiwan, and basically that's the original Chinese government, and the communists took over, and the communists have always like, wait a minute, that's ours. And if they were going to invade Taiwan or do something with Taiwan, what's the first thing they're going to want to do is they're going to want to cut us off from helping. And if you shut down that Panama Canal, any of our ships in the Atlantic Ocean is going to take a couple more weeks to get there.
And have you
I think
seen
that's part of the strategy.
Right. And have you seen all the choke points they already have throughout the world? All the throughways and seaways. And I mean, it strategically, they're really set up to do that, not just in Panama with that important waterway, but all over the world, they're set up for that. It is kind of advantageous. So he's going to have to act expeditiously, I think. We're going to have to get this whole thing worked out, hopefully get the relationship back with China and be equal partners. If not, they're just going to steamroll everything. And I believe that they were on their way to doing that when Biden was in charge. You know, you give them a few more years, and considering the situation, it could have been horrific. And I think he's got his work cut out for him when it comes to that. I think, you know, the first term you said about Russia, I think it was Russia and rushing, right? Because I think when he got in there, he was so unprepared. I think maybe there was nobody more surprised that he got elected as president than Donald Trump. So it was kind of
that. I think he thought he was going to win.
Yeah. And nobody did. Everybody went to bed thinking, Hillary's going to be the next president. And then they woke up and it's Trump's president. What? So I think it was so hurried that he basically, now he's had a full 4 years or 2 years or however long he took to get his new administration, his nominees and everything together. Back then, I think it was just so rushed that everybody was saying, this guy, put this guy here, put this guy here, put this one here, 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 here. And that's why I think he went on that huge firing spree. He has high standards anyway, so you're going to expect some people to get fired. But these are basically other people's appointees. You know, they're other people's recommendations. I think this time he really had a chance to look everything over and find the people that he feels are going to get the mission accomplished. And he chose them and brought them in. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about some of these appointees, and who do you think are going to be confirmed and who not? We don't have to go too far in depth, but.
Well, what's funny about it is if you had asked me or asked you or asked a Democrat for that matter, or a Republican or anybody, can you name me the Secretary of Interior that, you know, who was under, well, even Biden, who was the Secretary of Interior under Biden? I don't know.
Yeah.
And he just was, or she was a couple weeks ago. The media is picking on every single appointee like they are the expert about these people. When, you know how many secretaries of each of these cabinets we've had through the years? What were their qualifications? Who knows and who cared? I mean, and who was the director of the FBI when Gerald Ford was president? What was his qualifications? Were they questioning it every day on the news media about that? No. But see, now there's so much more information out there. They know so much more about everybody that if you don't like somebody, like, for example, the Democrats don't like anybody that, you know, is going to be in those positions, but they have a lot more information that they can say, this thing that you said on the internet back in 2012 and this and that didn't have anything like that in the past. So the hypocrisy about it is because we talked before we started about the hypocrisy with the media and maybe the Democrats in general is we didn't really I don't remember for Biden or Obama or anything like that such craziness over each single cabinet post like about how terrible they are. I mean, it was just kind of like, what was Mayorkas's qualifications? And he ran Homeland Security. What was his qualifications? I don't know, because he didn't do a very good job. So how do you know that these people that Trump is picked is going to be any better or worse than anybody else? But they all have, but the bottom line is they all have the same marching orders and direction,
Right.
and Trump's given it to him. And he's gotten people this time, if you're a Republican or a Trump supporter, you're going to be like, good. If you're a Democrat, they're already starting, because they're like, well, what if the president says to do this and you're going to have a moral dilemma? What are you going to do? But you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
It's a totally different,
Yeah. Well, they're very
how do we
hypocritical.
know that they're going to be any better or worse than anybody else? We don't really.
And look at with Kennedy, for instance. I mean, look at the old Health and Human Services director. What do we know other than they're trans? I mean, what were their real qualifications? Yeah. Or the other one who was a trans, DEI. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. I am a big proponent of equality. I mean, if you're qualified, just like Trump is saying now, it should be on merit. It should be on ability, not on whether you're black or white or man or woman or trans or straight or what have you. So I have no qualms against somebody that's qualified being in a position regardless of gender or sexual preference or whatever it is. However, just to put somebody in positions, for instance, 7% of the population in the United States right now is LGBTQ. 14% of Biden's administration was LGBTQ. It's so equal, yes. Preferential treatment and putting those people on a pedestal and their wants and needs above what everybody else wants, I think that's prejudice. It's reverse prejudice, right? Everybody wants equality, including me. But when you do that, and Trump has had his past administration, he had 5 gay ambassadors. He's got a couple in his administration right now that are openly gay, and so I don't think that Trump at all is prejudiced. I mean, they were trying to even making him a misogynist. He hated women and things. Well, he's completely proved that wrong. I don't think he's prejudiced. He wants the best people to do the best job, qualified individuals, regardless of anything else. That's who he wants to do the job.
I agree with that, and I see that, but I think you got two things going on there. And the one thing is I think he probably ought to tweak his messaging a little bit. Yeah. And I'll comment on that, because especially about when this plane crashed, people took it, it was a DEI hire who was responsible for that happening. And of course, we don't know who's responsible or anything like that for that plane crash. But really what his point is, and there's been a lot of cleanup from people afterwards. But if you already hate Trump, when you hear that, you're saying, he thinks a minority or whatever is the one who caused the plane crash. But what he's saying is it's the system of we can't fill the positions because the requirements for the positions are such that people who could do the job can't get the job based on things that don't have to do with the job. Now, he could have said, I don't know who's at fault or anything like that, but I do know that FAA is totally messed up with their DEI program, that they can't fill positions because they can't get enough of this group or that group or that group. And it's a system problem. Not so much a woman is responsible for the helicopter crash or
right.
a minority or whatever. And so I think he missed the point on that. And the other thing is people who already hate him or are against him, I mean, they're going to take any little thing and they're going to focus and pounce on that. They're being, both sides do it. They're really intellectually dishonest when they rephrase what Trump is saying or thinking. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think the same things that endear him a lot to a lot of the people on the right, And of course, there's different groups of people and classes and everything that support both sides. I think I'm a little more objective. I mean, I really, really thought that he was by far the best choice for president during this last election. But do I think he's perfect? No. I mean, I have a lot of people that are friends. I don't agree with sometimes how they act, how they talk, what they do, who they hang out with. But it doesn't mean I don't support them. It doesn't mean they're not good fathers and husbands to their families and are good leaders. Just because they don't think exactly like I think doesn't make them any less or more qualified to do what they do. And that's kind of how I feel about Trump. I really like him. People that don't care what anybody says or don't ever criticize or they think everything is perfect, yeah, that's a cult, right? The Democrats always try to call the conservatives a cult. But some may feel that way. So Trump walks on water and he's, all this. But I mean, I can be critical, I think, of sometimes of the way he says things or how he says things, or even some of the things that he says. But when it comes to leading the country, I think he did a pretty damn good job the last time. And I think he's a lot more prepared this time. And we have such a mess right now that I think he is the ideal person, regardless of arrogance and the way he talks, to lead us forward. That's why I get excited when I hear about the golden age of America, because look, when you're at the bottom, there's really no place to go but up. So these things I think are really going to be effective. And when you're looking at something that's so dismal, when you start to see improvements, it makes it just all the more brighter and your perspective changes. So that's what I'm excited about. But yeah, I really believe that they cannot get over that acerbic personality, the arrogance that he portrays sometimes, and jumping the gun, like you said. Some of these things he says, you just kind of cringe. But you can even go back and say what he's done with businesses and people that don't understand business. They always say, he's had all these bankruptcies. But, when you're a billionaire, that's just part of doing business. You know how to weed things out and you do what you have to do. It's more of a maneuver, financial maneuverability to get you where you need to be. But I don't know if you can really harshly judge too much and say he's a bad leader, because I think this is just what America needed. I think we needed it for years and years and years. But when you're managing a country like you manage a business,
right?
If you can manage a business, it's even bigger. We're talking trillions of dollars, but he's very good at managing a business. And I think he knows how to manage this country and get us to the point where we need to be.
Yeah, I see that. Think the reason why the country is, well, it's always been divided along Democrat and Republican, but I think that there is a general sense in the country that the bones of our country are strong, but we need an overhaul on lots of things. And the real issue, it's like when you buy an old stately home, it might have to go down to the studs and rebuild it. But the problem is the vision of what are you rebuilding? And that's where you get into Trump's vision. Let's just say the Republicans' vision is morphed with Trump's vision, that we need to tear it all down to the studs and rebuild it because it's not sustainable what's happening now. The Democrats think the same thing, but they want to tear it down the studs and they want to build something different.
That's a good analogy.
We don't want we don't want to live in the house they want to build. And apparently they don't want to live in the house that we want to build. So, when you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, it's very easy to start falling into the other side is crazy. And I honestly think that most people think the other side is crazy. Right now, there's going to be people that will watch this and say, you're nuts, Tim. You're totally crazy. And then they'll have the reasons why. Now, are they good reasons or bad reasons? They're their reasons. But the bottom, but what I see though is he is trying to fix it. Biden didn't try to fix it. Or what he was trying to fix is he was trying to make the house something different than what we want. To me, the federal government ought to be about security, military security, and then you've got Social Security, and you got some of that stuff that's the large thing. But to be honest, most of this stuff ought to be handled by the states anyway. And he kind of started in that mindset where, like with the abortion issue, where it went, let the states decide, let it be local. I think we got to get a lot more of that. And I think he's the change candidate that might make that happen, because he's talked about eliminating whole bureaus of government. I think that's needed. But if the Democrats had the House, if they were rebuilding the House, that's not what they would want to do. And we don't agree with that.
Right.
I don't think they're bad people. I mean, we have close family who, well, I have close family that started out, they might have been born and raised in a certain party, and then now they're the other, or
Right.
or people that have always been whatever it is. But I mean, my wife and I have been kind of like somewhat in the middle, even though we're both Republicans, and even though we see a lot of stuff that's said by Democrats and it doesn't make any sense, we kind of gotten to the point where it's like crazy Uncle Donald is going to say crazy stuff all the time, but he means well.
Yeah.
Everybody's got that uncle or grandpa or something like that. I mean, I had a grandpa that he said some out there things, and everybody would be like, "Oh, you're crazy," or they'd even fight. I remember being a kid and they would be arguing with him about stuff. And then, he's been long gone, of course. But then you stop and think, he wasn't so wrong after all. Maybe how he said it wasn't very smooth.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So
it's political correctness. I think that's why so many people relate to it. Like you said, that uncle at the Christmas party that's not, they got to do this and they got to do that. Trump does say what people think. He doesn't just pause and say, okay, this is how I feel, but what would the politically correct response be to this?
How to not be offensive.
Right.
Like, I got to think how not to be offensive.
He doesn't care. Yeah. No, he doesn't.
Some people will find that refreshing, and some people will find that uncomfortable. It's like, I mean, you played basketball, right?
Hard to believe now, but yes.
You had different coaches. They had different ways of going about things.
Right.
Some coaches were hard asses, probably. Some coaches were more players coaches. What works? I don't know, but we do, sometimes it works. And usually, like with coaches, like you'll have a hard ass coach, and then the next coach will be a players coach, and vice versa. Maybe we're dealing a little bit of that too in politics, because Biden was very hands off. I mean, what was he doing sometime weeks at a time? I mean, we really don't know. We really don't know. And then when you see Trump, and even if you hate Trump, you got to give Trump credit. He's trying.
Right.
Now, you may not agree with what he's doing, but he is, and he's gotten the votes and he's gotten the mandate to do it, and he has to. And he has to do it quick, because there's a good chance they lose the House in 2026, because it just tends to happen where you lose seats, unless everybody's like, they really, really like. I don't know when there's been a time where the sitting president has gained seats in the midterm. I don't know if that happened when Reagan from 80 to 82 to 84. I don't know. But I don't really know of a time. Usually they lose seats at the midterms. Usually.
This might be a first, though. I mean, this is something that I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on what he gets done. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's moving so fast. Like him or hate him, or I remember when we were younger, it wasn't party so much as the person that you voted for. I'm like, I lean towards Republican, but if this guy, like, I believe I voted, it's been a while, but I believe I voted for Bill Clinton because I kind of like the politics. Yeah, right. You guys didn't, nobody heard that. Can we edit that part out? No, but as far as his political agenda, I don't think it was bad. He made some bad personal choices, I guess, besides marrying Hillary. But, some others that were probably even more.
That night, I don't know.
And others that were very indiscretionary, but nowadays it's like, it's so polarized. It's either far right or far left. If you see somebody that you like that's a Democrat, but it's going to affect the majority of the Senate, you're not going to vote for them, even though they may be a better candidate. But if it's going to help the Democrats get a majority because you just do not believe in what they've done. But
Right.
getting back to that, I think they just have a reputation, the Democrats, for a lot of talk and no action. They'll promise, campaign promise here, campaign promise there, and they get into office and 4 years goes by and nothing's going on. So like you said, and I will reiterate, I think Trump is just, his plans are to try and fulfill every damn thing that he said he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the old adage, right? Say what you're going to do and do what you said. So that's something that I respect a lot that he's trying to get done. And that's the business part of him, not the politician part, because a politician, they're used to all that, you know, this, and nothing else. They just get in there to take office and then they sit on their hands for 4 years. So that's one of the reasons I really like what he's doing.
Yeah, I think that he's what? Is he 79 or is he 80 or 78? How old is he?
I think he's 78 or 79, something like that. So that's another concern, you know?
Well, his time is short more ways than one. Not
Right.
even just his age, but he's a lame duck president. He can't run again.
Right.
So he has a sense of urgency to get these things done. And if he doesn't get them done in this first 2 years, I think he realizes the second 2 years is going to be tough. So that's the other sense of urgency on this. Now, it'll be really interesting to see who lines up after him to run next cycle.
Right.
I'll
be honest. I think you will agree with me, Donald Trump is not a guy that doesn't care about his legacy. You know?
No, he does care. Actually, he does care about his legacy because so he's not going to want to mess up. He doesn't want to go down as the only person to be impeached twice. He wants to go down as he was one of the greatest presidents because of the stuff he did. So this is kind of like a redemption thing for him too. I think maybe the embarrassment, like if it were me, if I was impeached twice and if I felt like it was unfair, I would probably be like, I want to show them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, when he said about like Mount Rushmore and about putting himself on there, I mean, it kind of comes across as arrogant, but then on the other hand, he is very concerned about his legacy. I mean, he's going to want to, like he even mentioned the other day about someone changing the name of a road to Trump Avenue or something like that. And he's tickled by it. So he's got, I mean, let's face it, he's got a healthy ego, but you kind of have to get somewhere, I guess. More than a healthy ego, he's got a big ego, but most people in power do. It's just he's not afraid to show it. Now, I'd say Joe Biden had just as big an ego, but in different ways. But he's thinking in his mind he wants to be in the history books and that, you know, mountains will be named after him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why I put Mount McKinley back, by the way, because I don't know if someone has... if he just already knew or if someone's turned him on to William McKinley, because he is trying to kind of repeat the William McKinley policies with the tariffs and that sort of thing. There's a lot of similarities, and he even has mentioned about, you know, 120 or 30 years ago and stuff like that. So he's got William McKinley on the brain, and it was very interesting that one of the first things he did was change Mount Denali back to Mount McKinley. One of my customers is Denali National Park. And at the time, I actually was living in, when they changed it over, I was living in Canton, which is the home of William McKinley, the McKinley Monument and everything's there. And that's where he's from. So I was talking to him about the Mount McKinley thing. He said, yeah, all the locals have always called it Mount Denali anyway. So really, whatever it's called, does it really matter? I don't know. It's Denali National Park. They changed it to Mount Denali. Now he's changed it back to McKinley. Does it really matter? Not really. But I think he's trying, he is, for whatever reason, he is trying to identify himself. I believe William McKinley was a businessman too. Yeah. He's really emulating him, almost like a reincarnation. I'm not saying he's reincarnated from William McKinley, but there are a lot of similarities there.
Well, he knows as politicians, he can say what he wants about Reagan. There's some things that he takes out of the Reagan playbook too. So at least he's looking at things that they have done that are successful. I'm a big proponent of there's nothing wrong with having a big ego as long as your actions can back it up. It's like a professional athlete. If they're talking shit here and there and then they go out and they flop on their face, okay. But if you can back it up, I mean, it's not something that endears them to me, really. But if you say something and you can back it up, I get it. So that's my main concern. And we're kind of running up on time here. So we're going to wrap this up in a minute. But my biggest thing about Trump is I want him to be successful. I can't believe people are rooting against him because of, and this is the big argument, right? Why are you rooting against the guy? Because of his personality and things. Nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. He's not perfect. But, I think he is a good leader and will be able to get accomplished what we need to get accomplished to get back on track. I just don't like the road that we were going down before. Right. I really don't think we're horrible. I mean, considering all the other countries in the world.
I think the bones were good.
Yeah.
I've got dogs coming. They don't care who's president. Oh,
that's all right. We can see your dogs. There you go. Look at this all-American.
She was born under Biden, and now she's living under Trump.
That's funny. Hey, this is...
You gotta go pee.
Oh, this is real life, folks. I may have to, too, so, But
I mean, you're not getting any younger, Tim, and neither am I.
That's right.
I take pills for that.
Well, listen, thanks, Mark, for being my guest today. I really appreciate you. Your dog obviously really appreciates you.
Yes.
I want to thank you here for being with me. Let's do it again sometime. We barely scratched the surface, and, we're taking a little more time, but it was refreshing. Loved having you as a guest. Everybody out there, I appreciate you all so much. Thanks for tuning in. Very excited about this first interview. Hopefully it won't be the last. We'll have other guests on here. I enjoy you all. Thanks again. Stay strong, stay patriotic, stay the course. Thank you for tuning in and join us next time on Red Rights and You. God bless you all, and God bless America.
Thank you.